Welcome to Take 10 on Tuesdays with the Tennessee Tribune. Our guest today is Dr. Sybril Bennett, who's a journalism professor at Belmont University. I'm Sandra Long-Weaver, and I'm the editorial director for the Tennessee Tribune. And Dr. Bennett has written a book, Innovate, Lessons from the Underground Railroad. And so tell me, Dr. Bennett, what do we have to learn from the Underground Railroad?
There's a lot to learn. My premise is the Underground Railroad is among the most disruptive, innovative, and effective networks in U.S. history. When people think about the Underground Railroad, most of the time Harriet Tubman comes to mind.
Exactly.
But if you were to say, name another conductor, the room goes silent. Or name escapes. They may be able to mention William and Ellen Craft or maybe Henry Box Brown,
Right.
but others they're not as familiar with. You know, they know that Frederick Douglass escaped, but they're not as familiar with how he escaped. So what I attempted to do was not only to bring history to life, but to connect it to the present in such a way that people stop looking at the Underground Railroad as a myth or a legend. So I compare the Underground Railroad to the internet, because arguably the internet will be the most disruptive, effective, and innovative network in U.S. history. But if you think about disruption, this notion of something happening outside of an existing system, coming up from the bottom of the market and disrupting the status quo, the Underground Railroad disrupted the system of slavery.
It definitely did. And so when you decided to do this, what led you to making this comparison? How did that come about?
Time, divine intervention. People jokingly say, were you with Cheech and Chong smoking a doobie? I'm like, no, it came out naturally. It was just, I was reading a lot of books on innovation. I was reading books by a lot of my white male colleagues, and many of them did not include the African American experience. For example, when you're talking about word of mouth marketing, I thought about the slaves.
Exactly.
You know, enslaved Africans had to communicate.
There was no other way.
What else were you going to do? So in reading, in experiencing, I was very fortunate through the National Association of Black Journalists. We had a unity convention in D.C. in 2004. I visited Frederick Douglass's home as part of that conference. I was very fortunate to visit the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center in Cincinnati, Ohio, with my church, the St. John Missionary Baptist Church up in Hendersonville, Tennessee. And all of these experiences collided. And it just made sense. I was very fortunate through the American Press Institute to attend a seminar that led us to the battle at Gettysburg.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I'm
wow.
sitting on the battlefield taking notes like a nerd. You know, nowadays you have to, choke students to make them take notes.
Right.
Take notes. You can't remember everything.
Right.
And so, because I have all these notebooks sitting around, each of the experiences just started to make sense. You know, when you begin to think about the battle at Gettysburg, why did the Union win that particular pivotal battle?
Right.
A big part of it is the vision. They were looking forward. The South was looking back, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when I talk about the 7 elements of innovation that I created as a framework to write the book.
Actually, that's a great segue, because that was my next question. As I was going through the book, I saw that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
And for people who want to write, figuring out a framework is critical. It's like your outline, it's your guideline. So for me, the 7 elements of innovation that I created, they are problem, principle, purpose, perspective, pioneering, passion, and play. In slavery, as well as on the internet, you're dealing with similar problems: freedom, ownership, boundaries, access, and privacy. The issues then were a little bit different, because enslaved Africans fought for their privacy.
Right.
They wanted to be able to have intimate relations, they wanted to take a bath, they wanted to eat alone.
More survival issues.
Absolutely. And now we're outsourcing our privacy. We're complaining that companies have access to our information, yet we're talking about religion and race and politics on Facebook, issues we normally don't discuss at the dinner table.
Right.
But now the intelligence of the computer, based on even your likes on Facebook, they can determine your sexual orientation and other information that you have a choice in the past, had a choice to keep private. But now we're outsourcing that privacy. So at the time of the Underground Railroad, you had slaves who were 3/5 of a human being, fighting for citizenship and freedom, not just for themselves, but for future generations.
Right.
Flash mobs were forming.
Flash mobs.
Flash mobs, a term of today.
How did flash mobs form? How did
random people came together? Conductors, station masters, Canadians, free blacks, Quakers, different people came together, disconnected people came together to connect for an epic win. So even when I talk about play, I talk about those notions of gaming. But the problems were there. The purpose was there. They were going forward, whether that promised land was Canada, Bahamas, getting through to Florida, to the Indian population that did help blacks at that time, enslaved Africans. So they had a purpose. They were driven. Principle. They stood on the foundation that freedom was a right everyone should enjoy. And so when you start to think about that today, same issues. Everybody deserves access.
Right.
You know, right now, you got the digital divide. 20% of the American population don't have access to broadband. So in doing the book the way that I did it, I'm trying to raise awareness today, but also hitting those historical connections. So that's the problem, principle, purpose, perspective, which I love. Again, the South kept saying, I'm going to rape the land. I'm going to reap out of season. You know, there's spiritual connotations there.
Right.
When you want things out of season, that's a problem.
Okay.
But they kept looking for King Cotton to rise again, to stay number one. It's almost analog and digital today. We keep looking for the traditional status quo to remain. It's not going to.
No, it's rapidly changing.
The North accepted the immigrants at that time, the Polish, the Irish, etc. And so Italians, etc. They accepted them because they had skills they needed.
Right.
So they used them. In addition, on the battlefield, your Union officers all collaborated, no matter where they were in terms of rank. They listened to everybody. Every soldier had value. Whereas on the Confederate side, General Lee made unilateral decisions.
Oh, really?
Without consulting the troops. So a lot of lessons. And military history was not my thing, but I picked up on some of the lessons from it. That's perspective. Pioneering, every escape was unique. You keep doing the same thing over and over again, that's a definition of insanity. You got pioneers on the internet, whether they're creating Twitter, whether they're creating Instagram, Google, whatever it is, you got this pioneering spirit. Every enslaved African escape was different. If they did the same route, they could be tracked. They could get caught.
Right.
So that's the pioneering piece. Passion, that's a given. Passion makes you stay up all night. Passion made enslaved Africans walk off a plantation in the middle of the night, in the dark, into the unknown. Not knowing if a slave catcher would get them, not knowing if another slave would tell on them, not knowing if the elements would get them. The Ohio River wasn't as wide as, or as deep, but it was still an impediment to get to freedom, but they took it.
Right.
They were pioneering. And the last one I mentioned, passion, play, the strategy.
Oh,
it's not so much the joking side of it, it's this the deliberate strategic element of how do I deliberately manipulate, get out of this situation, pretending to be someone I'm not, dressing up as a man or a woman, depending on my gender, to throw people off, pretending to be free when I was not, depending on the hue of my skin. Because, of course, with the slave masters raping slaves, some of them had children who were fair-skinned and who could pass for white. So some slave escapes.
So then they could pretend that the adult was the slave and they were free.
Absolutely. So there goes the 7 elements of innovation in a nutshell.
Now, during your conversation, I noticed that you make this distinction between slave and enslaved. And what is that distinction and why is that important?
Enslaved is not by choice. You have someone who is a captive African in America. A slave may have stayed on the plantation after the Civil War, even after they were free. After slavery was abolished, they may have chosen to stay because they were afraid of the unknown.
Right, and
but it was a
that's
choice.
What they knew. Okay.
It was a choice as opposed to the force of it.
Okay, all right. And we talked about the 7 elements of innovation. Motivation 3.0. Tell me a little
That's
bit
a concept from Daniel Pink in his book Drive. I want to make sure I've read both books. In Drive. But Motivation 1.0 is the carrot and the stick. You know, you're punished immediately for doing something wrong. It's survival needs, it's bare bones. When you're getting up to 3.0, 2.0 is the relationship changes. It's not just the reward and punishment, but the rewards are getting better, but they're still not quite there because they're all external rewards. Motivation 3.0 is internal. And the argument that Pink is making is that your internal motivation is always going to be stronger than external motivation. You can give somebody all the money in the world, but if they're not content inside, it's not going to work, so to speak. So he talks about mastery, autonomy, and purpose.
I see.
Realizing mastery, autonomy, and purpose. And that's what the enslaved Africans were striving to do, but they were stuck in a Motivation 1.0 system where it was the carrot and the stick. You do this for fear of being beaten. You do this for fear of having something taken away, as opposed to, I'm doing this for the love of what I want to do and I'm free to do.
Right. That's true. So what's the greatest lesson, if you had to pick one lesson, especially for African Americans today?
Be disruptive. Be who we are. Mm-hmm. Because we weren't created to fit a status quo. We just weren't. Mm-hmm. You know, whether it's the skin color, whether it's the voice, whether it's the positionality, attitude, we were not made to fit in. You know, period. Okay. And most people were not made to fit in, and being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I got that from Dr. Lucius Outlaw at Vanderbilt. He said, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. This is not a resort.
Right.
So learning how to be effective within a system, because they learn that effectiveness. They learn how to disrupt with deliberation, intentionality, and with a heck of an impact.
Right. Now, all of your work that you've been doing, working on the book, teaching, being innovative, you're a motivational speaker. Mm-hmm. You travel around the country talking to groups about especially cutting edge things involving mm-hmm. technology and how we as African Americans can be more involved. You have 2 honors that are coming very quickly, and you have, let me see if I can get all of this right now. You are the recipient of the Gold Pen Excel Award in Leadership and Communication. That's being given by the International Association of Business Communicators. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Tell me just a little bit about that and what that means to you.
When a prophet is loved at home, it means a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It means a lot, a lot, a lot. And a friend and colleague, Don Rutledge, recommended me for that award, and to actually receive it is overwhelming. Mm-hmm. Again, it's a great responsibility, mm-hmm. and I take it just fuel for me. It's mm-hmm. fuel to help you keep going. So being a leader in communication, doing my best not only to teach students, to mentor students that are not at Belmont, mm-hmm. and just to help various organizations with their communication needs quietly. A lot of things you don't do publicly, you do it so that you can be rewarded in public, so to speak. Do it quietly. So okay. It's a great, great, great honor.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And you have been selected to participate in the Web Summit and International Convention. Is that mm-hmm. the right word? Mm-hmm. That's going to be held in Dublin, mm-hmm. October 30th and 31st. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that. How were you selected? I know you had to go online and vote.
Yes.
And,
yes. This is the Web Summit, for those who are familiar with South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. This is Europe's version of South by Southwest. It includes CEOs, visionaries, innovators, entrepreneurs, startups. I'm thrilled, mm-hmm. honored, excited again. Mm-hmm. What happened was I haphazardly, people think Twitter is crazy. Get on Twitter, figure it out, get there. That's a broadcast platform that you need to be on. It's not stupid. I haphazardly saw a tweet and clicked on it, and it afforded me the opportunity to submit myself to speak at the Web Summit in Dublin, Ireland. But you have to be voted. This is the people stage. They have a main stage and a cloud stage, developer stage, various stages. But this one they call the people stage. Okay. So people had a chance to vote for me, and I ended up in the top 50, and thank you to everybody who voted for me. I ended up in that top 50, so as a result I was actually invited to speak mm-hmm. at this conference. So I'm still in shock, still in awe. But as my friends were saying, because initially I kind of gave up with the voting, because you're begging people to vote for you online, and it really got tedious, and I don't necessarily like to ask people for help, so to speak. I mean, I do when I need to, but just begging for votes was tiring, and I didn't want to irritate folks. Oh. But other, people were like, "This isn't about you. Mm-hmm. We need you to go, and we need you to bring back the information."
And you are the only African American woman,
as far as we can see,
who's presenting, or only African American. Mm-hmm. So there are no.
As far as you can tell,
okay.
When I looked at the visuals online. But they took them down. Mm-hmm. So now I don't know. But as far as I knew, in the rounds that I was in the round that I won, I was the only African American female.
Well, congratulations again. And now, what is your topic?
My topic will be Innovate, Lessons from the Underground Railroad. I'll have 4 minutes to talk, which is fine. That's fine. I can do it in 4 minutes or less.
All right.
And really looking forward. I mean, they've been emailing information. It's huge. It's 10,000 attendees.
Oh, wow. That is huge. Oh, mm-hmm. Great. All right, well, congratulations again. We've been talking with Dr. Sybril Bennett, and here's a copy of her book. Quickly tell us how you can get a copy of the book.
Innovate Lessons from the Underground Railroad is available online through Amazon, ebook form or print form on Kindle, through the Apple, as well as Barnes & Noble. You can get it online at Barnes & Noble, or you can go to a Barnes & Noble store and request it, and they will order it for you as well. And then I've got book signings all over the place periodically, and I try to keep everything online on my Facebook, Dr. Syb, author. So facebook.com, Dr. Syb, author is one place. And where else? I'm on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere online. Google Plus, just Dr. Syb Bennett.
All right. Well, great. We can find you.
So, Twitter at Dr. Syb. Twitter at Dr. Syb. DRSYB.
All right.
Forgot that.
All right. Well, great. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you.
And good luck to you. And we look forward to hearing more about your speech. Oh, and I forgot, you are also doing beta testing for
On
Google Glass.
Yeah, I felt bad. I'm going to come back and do Glass.
Okay,
Because that's
we'll
a
talk about
whole
that
conversation.
on another day.
And I forgot it. I'm sorry. Don't
That's
kill
all
me.
right.
I'm sorry. But
That's
thank
all
you, Nashville. Thank you for loving your own. And I appreciate you, Nashville, for that, sincerely.
All right. Thank you.